I recently had a revelation that I want to share with you. Or multiple revelations if I'm honest, because this thread I found on Twitter, of all places, changed the way I understood foreshortening forever. I saw this tweet by Tony Bonilla. He is a Disney animator that worked on Encanto, and he shared this image of a shot he did. Look at it. In order to get the hands how he wanted them in the shot, he deformed Mirabel's arms and stretched them out, breaking the model. That was a surprise for me, like why break a 3D model like that? But then, other artists started sharing their process as well, sharing how they also break the models in order to cheat perspective. Some other people even posted how this is done for video games as well, but why? If 3D models are like sculptures, why are they breaking the models in order to get the foreshortening look good? Shouldn't the foreshortening look correct every time? Abby, what does this have to do with drawing? I'm getting there, trust me. So why stretch Mirabel's arms? That's like if I wanted to take a picture of my hand stretched out and I chopped my hand in order to get the shot that I like. Which is exactly what Guillermo del Toro did in this shot for Hellboy 2. The hand is a prop. So after thinking for a while, I realized something that for us 2D artists is impossible to reason. Foreshortening is a lie. Think about it, all of these years trying to figure out anatomy and coils and perspective, and turns out that the truth was in front of us the whole time. Because as 2D artists, we can't turn the figure around to see if the angles of the pose is correct. But 3D artists can. Photography, sculpture, that is bound by physics. But 3D artists and animators, they only care about getting the shot right, just like we do. So who cares if the model is broken as long as it looks good? Maybe we need to stop thinking like sculptors and photographers and start thinking more like 3D artists. How? Well, let me show you. Now, instead of a step 1, I'd like to start with a step -1 because most of the foreshortening problems that we have is that we're trying to figure out the pose while also trying to figure out the perspective, while also trying to figure out the foreshortening of the figure that we're drawing. And it's all too much. And we don't need to do it in just one step. So first, I recommend that you draw a very small, very quick figure sketch of the pose that you want to do in a perspective that you feel comfortable with. So this way you can use it as reference and figure out where the parts of the body relate to each other in space. You know, sort of if like you were rotating a 3D model. So now we begin. Well, maybe because we had to make some sort of choices regarding the perspective that we're going to use. And don't worry, this video is not about drawing a million lines all over the place, but we do have to answer the following question. If the frame of the drawing is our camera, how far away is the subject? Because the closer it is to the camera and the wider the lens is, the more exaggerated the foreshortening is going to be. Think about those hip-hop videos that have fisheye lenses. But pay attention to this. Just because the subject is far doesn't mean that we can't zoom in. And when we do, the foreshortening remains just as proportional as it was before. There are 5-point perspective grids that you can use as reference for this, and you can make them as big or as small as you need. But the simplest version of this is just throw a few lines in perspective to get a sense of the space that your character is going to be in. So now we chose a pose, and we have a space. Now I'm going to tell you what we are not going to do. We are not going to get crazy with coils, and we're not going to get crazy with cubes and cylinders. Yet. Why? Because this usually creates two problems for us. The first is that we start coiling on one side of the joint and we have no idea where we're going to finish. More often than not, this results on our object being less foreshortened than what we want. And I'm sure this happened to you before. And second, because it makes it a lot harder to figure out the size of the bigger end of the limb. You know, the one that is foreshortened. So we're going to do something a lot simpler. Now comes the cheating. So how do these 3D artists cheat? Because the examples that I showed you at the beginning of the video seem very different. Except they are not. I noticed that in every example they choose which part of the body they are going to use as focal points to drive the perspective. These parts of the body, from now on, I'm going to call them landmarks. You've seen the example before, so let's look at it again. Here is a character holding their hand up front. So you have two landmarks, the head and the hand. So we're going to start with those. Now, if I have these two, how would the arm foreshorten? Well, we can make it pretty easy. I draw the torso, and now I have another landmark, the shoulder. And now I have another landmark, the elbow. Since this forearm is not particularly foreshortened, I can finish it pretty easily. And at this point, you can see that the upper arm foreshortening is pretty much already solved. Let's try this again by bringing the hand forward. Hand, shoulder, elbow. And now we just connect the dots, or, well, connect the cylinders. Because now that we have the spatial landmarks of our characters, we can connect the rest very easily. But what about something harder? Okay, let's give it a shot. So here in the corner, I drew a pose that I like. It is a person leaning in a bar. And now I'm going to define the space that the figure is going to be in. Now I'm going to start with the head and the torso. And look. Since in this case the perspective is already figured out, drawing the torso is going to be pretty simple, since it is basically a very long prism. Now, this is very important. I found a video by Mark Brunel where he shows how, in perspective, the middle point of an object is usually very far from the beginning. Please take this into consideration because it will make a very big difference. See what I mean here? You can mark the X like in the example from the other video, or if you feel comfortable, you can just try eyeballing it, like I just did, because I'm lazy. And we can continue the same trend towards the feet. The middle point of the leg is here. And weirdly enough, I found that the more you push this perspective, the better it will look. If you need to double check on this, you can use David Finch's technique, where he creates a zigzag frame that coincides with the landmarks of the body. If the zigzag feels in perspective, then you're doing things right. So now that we have these, we can move to the arms. The hand, elbow, and the rest is just waiting for us to finish it. See? Landmarks! Please try it for yourself, it is a game changer, and let me know in the comments if it works for you because I really want to know. Now, for an extra tip, remember to draw the shapes on top of each other. Mark where they overlap so it is easy to tell which one is on the foreground. Overlapping is another important part of the language of space. Oh, you wanted more? Okay, here we go. Make sure that your lines follow the shape of the figure. Don't just use straight lines, follow around the shapes. Use them to define some muscles and other more subtle shapes. Still, there might be some other angles that you might need some extra help with, especially faces from low angles. And if you happen to struggle with that one, I have a video for you, and it's going to be right here.